going also on YouTube. Perfect.
We're on YouTube. Oh, cool.
Yes, so we are connecting through to Zoom for university students and through YouTube for like high school students that are interested in.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
So it's both ways. And I think it's good. There we go. So, all right, we got 60 here right now, so it's great. Hello, everyone. Well, I'm going to say a few words in Spanish. Hola a todos, chicos, bienvenidos. Esta es nuestra última plática del primer día del Animation Level 3. Tenemos cierre de broche de oro. Desde Japón tenemos varios invitados. Ahorita los voy a presentar. Y a partir de ahorita, bueno, vamos a empezar a hablar en inglés y les vamos a hacer una introducción de cada uno de nuestros invitados. Así que comenzamos. Hello, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We're really happy, and we're finishing the first day of conferences, and it's with a star-studded panel. So we are really happy and excited to hear about you guys. And, well, I'm going to move out and let you guys introduce yourself. We have members from Amata, a game company in Japan, and they have so many interesting stories that they're going to share with us. So without further ado, I'm going to move away and then leave Alexis and Don, Aprila, and Mo to introduce themselves. And thank you for joining us, guys.
Okay, so first off, let me introduce Amata before I even introduce myself. So Amata is a game developer based in Japan. We're a kind of smaller company, about 200 people. And what's very special about us is that of that 200, about 20% of us are foreign, and we come from all over the globe. Today with us, we have myself, who's an American. We have someone from China. We have someone from Indonesia and someone from the UK. But we have way more in the company, and we work a lot with big publishers, and we create their games in tandem with them. And we also have some self-published titles. We do a lot on VR. We even work on film. So we are a very interesting company, I'd say. So yeah, if you want to check us out, it's amata, amata.co.jp. And then, so now I'm going to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Alexis Broadhead. I am a technical animator, and I was also a creative director on some projects in Japan. I've been working at Amata for over 6 years now, and I've been in Japan for over 10 years. It's really fun. I'm really excited to tell you guys about working in Japan and my experience. And then I'll go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel. Dan, tell us about yourself for a second.
Okay, hi there. My name is Daniel Barker, Dan. I'm from the UK. I'm a 3D artist at Amata. I'm the new guy. I only joined last December, so I'm still kind of like making my way around this whole like game industry thing. But I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really excited to tell you guys more about it.
All right, Aprila.
Hi, I'm Aprila Japtanius. I'm from Indonesia. I work mainly on 2D motion and effect, everything in 2D. Yeah, nice to see you guys.
And then Mo.
Hi everyone, my name is Mao. I'm from China, and now I'm working on a VR project and making 3D visual effect. I used to be an illustrator, and I also made some 3D model in this company. Hope you guys have a nice day. Yes.
All right. So I'm told that there are some questions that have been prepared beforehand. So can I hear what you guys wanted to ask us?
Yes, thank you, Alexis. So one of the first things that some of our students want to know is how did it all started? How did you end up in Japan? So it was like a conscious decision to, that's my goal to go to Japan, or maybe like circumstances and the job took you there. Can you share some of that?
Sure. I'm gonna have Mao, can you go first? And if you want to do it in Japanese, I'll translate for you if you want, or if you want to try in English. So each of us has had a very different road to Amata, and Mao has actually started as a new graduate And that's going to be closest to what the majority of the viewers, the students watching, their experience could be. So I think he's going to be the most interesting to hear first, and then we'll go down the line. で、日本語でも大丈夫。本当にね。
No problem. I'll have a try. Yes, I am new graduate from in Japanese. And what kind of school is not university? How is that school in English?
So technical school.
A technical school, yes, yes. I started 2 years in technical school, but before that, I already worked in a Chinese company for 1 year. And after that, I came to Japan and had 2 years studied in technical school. And after that, I joined Amata and worked 2 years here. And my experience is kind of special, I think. It's not Alex says it's common. It's a common case, but I think it's not quite common. But I think everyone from school will have this road to company in Japan. The first year you started. The last year you're in school, you have to communicate with many Japanese companies to find which one fits you best, and you made up your mind and came to a Japanese company. The most difficult thing I think is the first time I came here, I already have I have already passed the top level of Japanese language test with N1, but the first time I came here, I can hardly understand anything the Japanese was speaking. But it's really I think the way how they communication is just was not familiar to me, I think. But it came better after 1 year. After I joined, I got in the technical school. I had to have a lot of communication with my classmates and also with my teacher. And from that point, my Japanese just got better and better and good enough to work and became good enough to work in a Japanese company.
What made you decide to come to Japan?
Yes, it's so hard to say. I like Japanese anime just like most of those who want to come to Japan. I want to come to Japan, but just as I said, I worked 1 year in a Chinese company and making those Japanese style games. But after 1 year, I think I really want to make it. So I wanted to go to where this art style comes from. So the only way to do the original one of this type of art style, the only way is to go to Japan. There's no other ways. So that's how I came here. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Aprila, how about you? How did you come to Japan?
I think I'm a reckless one because I came to Japan right after I graduated from high school without any real plan. And in my country, the graduation is on October, so I have a half year blank to enter Japanese technical school. So I entered Japanese language school, but I pretty fluent in Japanese even before coming to Japan. Well, I always like Japan and I play game in Japanese, so yeah, I learned Japan even before I came here. And then I just go to Japanese school for half year and technical school and then search for work and I meet Amata. Quite a quick reckless maybe, because yeah, right after graduate, I just came to Japan to chase my dream.
Beautiful. How about you, Dan?
Well, I know I've always been interested in video games and that kind of stuff ever since I was a kid. Still am. I may probably play a bit too much. But yeah, I kind of never actually imagined I would be working in the game industry. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. I kind of followed that path for quite a while, but I kind of fell in love with animation and like 3D and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed it. Went to university to go study that kind of stuff, and I know the idea of making games wasn't a thing for me in the UK, so I kind of focused more on like visual effects and like putting like real footage and CG together and stuff like that. I kind of while I was doing that, I kind of on a whim almost kind of got into kendo and stuff like that. And through kendo, I kind of started to learn a bit more about Japan and like Japanese and all that kind of stuff. And I thought it was like, oh, it'd be nice to go visit there and spend a year, maybe see the sights and stuff like that. And in the UK, as an English speaker, I can do this thing called the JET program, where I come to Japan and I work in a Japanese school teaching English. I came for 1 year, did that, and I really, really liked it. I really, really liked Japan. It was so fun. The food is amazing. The people are really friendly. And yeah, so I kind of ended up doing that for 5 years. But when that finished, I was kind of thinking, okay, what can I do? And I was looking actually for VFX work and doing stuff with editing and stuff that I used to do in the UK. But then when I was looking around, I was like, you know what? I'm in Japan. Japan is like world famous for video games. Now is like actually my chance. And I stumbled across Amateur, which is actually really close to my house. Yes. And I went in for a tour to kind of like learn a bit more about the place, and that's where I met Alexis and like Haris-san, and yeah, they told me about Amateur, and like it seemed like a really nice work environment, and completely like the opposite to some of the stories I'd heard about what life working in Japan is like. And I always knew being an English teacher was kind of quite a different thing. But to find out that in the games industry, which can be a bit notorious for like overtime and like overwork and stuff like that, that actually they had a really positive work culture, which revolved around sustainability and people being happy and happy people doing good work. Yeah, I applied and I was lucky enough to get in. And yeah, it hasn't even been a year yet, but I think I've been learning quite a lot. My background in like animation is quite different to how you would do 3D stuff in video games. So it's been like it's been quite a steep learning process, but there's been quite a bit of support and people accept that I'm not like the king of everything, which is really, really good. Yeah, so that's my thing. I kind of got lucky with the visa thing because actually I met my wife in the UK. My wife is Japanese, so I'm here on a spouse visa. So yeah, being here also means I can be with her, which is nice. Yeah.
All right, and then I guess I'll talk about my story now. So I've been here the longest out of all of us. I've been here 10 years, and I graduated during the financial crisis. Yay! I went to school for computer animation. Back in high school, I remember playing Final Fantasy X and seeing the Blitzball scene and being like, that's what I want to do. I want to make that. But I'm a girl and very not Japanese. And so I never thought it was possible. But I always kept it in my head like as a dream that I'll never actually achieve. And then I went to college, and one of my teachers in college actually worked in Japan for a long time. And I was shocked. I was like, that's possible? Wait, you're not Japanese, you're foreign, what? And he's like, it's totally possible. You should go over as an English teacher. That's the easiest way to get your foot in the door. And I was like, you're a genius. And 2008, no one was hiring in the US anyway. So I took my chances. I didn't speak a word of Japanese, and I came over as an English teacher. And I did that for 4 years. And I got my Japanese to a good enough level. And then I applied. I went to some networking events. And like 3 months later, I had a job at Amata. And I'm different. So Aprila and Mao both came in as new graduates. And Dan and I, despite not having industry experience, we both came in as journeyman, which are mid-tier. So all the four of us have very different experiences. And so literally I entered the company, and like literally the next day I was already starting work on Final Fantasy Agito, which was my first project that I got assigned. And it's so crazy to go from watching the blitzball scene to working on a, technically a Final Fantasy title. And it was like, and I've never looked back. I love working at Amata. And like Dan said, it really is, it's a very different company compared to a lot of Japanese companies. I have, since being here, I've gotten very involved in the industry. I speak at events. I have my own little animation community that I've started on a Slack channel. I hold events and things like that. So I'm very immersed in the industry here. And I do hear stories about other companies, and Amata is special. So I can say that much. So yeah, so there's our stories. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, that was great.
Great.
Very informative and very different perspective. So that was really good. Another question that we have here from our student is that, like from your perspective, now that you're already there in Japan, you passed through your own process, what advice would you give them now looking back? And if they want to do it, what will be your suggestions? What steps do you think? You don't do this because this will save you a lot of time, or what can you tell us about that?
That's an interesting question. Advice. What would I do differently? Anyone of the three of you have anything?
I mean, I personally would have started studying Japanese sooner. I kind of dabbled in it a little bit before I came to Japan. I was quite fortunate that when I was working as an English teacher, I was self-studying Japanese more or less every day to try and get up to a level of Japanese so that I could work in a Japanese company should I need to. If you don't have that opportunity to be able to study here, then like working on your Japanese, it's something you can definitely learn by yourself if you have the motivation. It is kind of a little bit scary with all the like squiggly like marks and stuff like that, but once you start to get your head around it, it all starts to make sense. And honestly, if I can do it, you guys can definitely do it. My language skills are like 0, like the worst. Yeah, I would have studied Japanese sooner, I think. That's the first thing that came to my head.
Okay. How about you, Aprila?
I think I'm agree with Dan. Especially, I think between the four of us, I'm the only one who actually enter a language school, but never ever think that I will be able to speak Japanese just because I enter Japanese language school. They basically, it's kind of playground if you ask me. You learn basically nothing. They only teach you what you can search yourself in the net, and probably some conversation might help, but still it's better to learn before you actually go to Japan. And it's kind of waste of money. So yeah, if you can learn.
There's some good advice there.
Language schools hate her.
I know, that's great advice. No, perfect.
The only thing that actually good in language school is you'll actually be able to get visa easily to search for work. So yeah, maybe there's a plus, but don't ever think that just as long as you enter Japanese language school, you will be able to speak Japanese. No, no, no. I've seen a lot of people who've been in Japanese language school for a year, but they sucks. So yeah, Japanese. That's basically everything.
Spicy hot take.
How about Mao?
I started 1 year in language school. It should be 1 year and a half, but after 1 year, I said, oh, that's enough. So I quit and go to a technical school and went to technical school. And I think it is necessary for young people. I mean, it's not just the study of a language, it's just also study of the society of Japan, I think, and to get close to the people here and see how they are living and try to understand. I think that is most important for maybe 1 year or 2 years in Japanese school, especially for young people. And that is my consideration.
Thank you.
So for me, yeah, I literally, like, when I came to Japan, I could say konnichiwa, arigato, and neko, and kawaii, because I was that girl. But I definitely wish I would have studied Japanese before coming here. But you guys have covered that pretty well. What I wish I would have done is I wish I would have started networking sooner when I got here. I had a job within 3 months after I started networking. Why didn't I start sooner? Why didn't I get those connections sooner? Networking is so important. There's so many events and things. Obviously, right now, COVID, but I wish I would have had contacts in the industry. And another thing I wish I really would have done is I wish I would have attended game jams sooner, because I didn't have, I studied computer animation. I didn't study game animation because my school didn't offer game animation. So I knew how to animate, but I didn't know how to animate for games. And I didn't know how to make that pivot. And I wish I would have gone to some game jams and kind of gotten the feel of things. But the other thing I will say is, this is less so from me, but more so of what I've seen in general. Just coming to Japan, I had never visited Japan once before coming here. I came in blind. I just saw what I saw in anime and I was like, I want to go there. And that's crazy. It'd be probably better to maybe take a trip here and see the country first, and see if it's somewhere you can live. In my experience in my 10 years here, I've known so many foreign people who've moved here, and the culture shock is real. Most people that I know who have come here leave after 2 to 3 years. If you make it past 3 years, you're typically going to be a lifer. You're going to be here for a while. Most people, 2 to 3 years, I'm out. I can't handle it, because the culture is very different. And I'm so glad that I was an English teacher first, because I got to really see work culture and things like that. So it's similar to how Aprila and Mao got to understand the culture from the school side of things. Dan and I got to understand it from the teacher's side, but still we got to see what it's like. And I've known a couple of people who came directly, and it was difficult for them to get past the cultural boundaries. So I don't regret that part, but the thing I would have done different the most is probably I would have networked a lot sooner and done game jams sooner.
Oh, that's great advice. Also, so kind of like getting a feel that one of the things that a student can do is start learning Japanese. Don't be afraid of the language, because that will give you an advantage. Once you get there, you can save months, maybe years in time. That's great. And also try to get involved in game jams, because just what you learn in the classroom is so different from actually making the games. Perfect. You can already answer, Alexis, a little bit about the culture shock. One of our students, Ruby, was asking us, for everyone, what was a major culture shock when arriving to Japan, because the culture is so different. And in the same way, what is the best part of working in a company that has so many people, not only Japanese, but from all over the world? Can you share with that?
Who should we go from this time? Aprila, you want to start?
Sure. My most culture shock is when I drop my headphone, somebody actually give it to the police station. I mean, it's just a headphone. It's okay, $10 or so maybe. But when I just come to the police station, because my sister told me, they probably sent it to the police station. I came and it's really there. Can you imagine it? $10 or so headphone. Normally in my country, it will be just gone. I mean, even if you drop your wallet here, it's probably still intact and in the police station. So yeah, it's a good culture shock though. Other than that, it's just extremely safe, and the train is never, almost never late. Even if they late, it's probably just 5 to 10 minutes. So it's really easy to actually put your schedule in the track and such. Yeah, but most of my culture shock is a good one.
Hmm.
Not because I'm Asian, so I'm still close to the Japanese compared to most. But yeah,
What about the best part in working in a company like Amata, where there's a lot of Japanese people and a lot of foreign people mixed?
first thing first, working on game alone is pretty much the best. But when it comes to the multicultural, of course, there's a lot of insight, and some people just say thing they want to say, and yeah, a lot of different opinions. That's probably the best parts. And especially in Amata, they didn't deny you just because you are a gaijin. They actually hear you out. I really like that part.
Yeah. How about Mao?
The major culture shock I experienced here, and I think it's how Japanese people was working in service system and treating people. They are so good. I can just tell you, that's a major shock. I think working with people from all over the world, I think it's not so special. I mean, I like to. When I was in university, there is also a student from other countries, and I think to have this different view from many cultures is very good things because you can always find some solutions you never expected. This is also like this in Amata. For example, I'm a designer, and but you can find that the designer from different culture and will have a different opinion even on exactly the same thing. So, uh, besides what you are thinking, you can also get some real point from other culture you are never expected. I think it's the best part of working with people from all the world. Yes.
How about you, Dan?
With regard to culture shock, like you suggested, I actually came and traveled in Japan for 3 weeks before I moved here as an English teacher. So I think I had fairly tempered expectations once I got here and I started working. Um, the biggest shocks to me were probably less to do with the culture of Japan, but more to do as my role as an English teacher in the public school system. Um, and I think that's a lot of the kind of any issues I had were more tied to that role specifically than it was to do with the general culture at large. Um, as for what it's like to work in Amata, I would say that I'm from London, which is like a very like multicultural place, and I worked in like an advertising company, and I worked freelance. So freelance is kind of similar to what it feels like now, being there with the whole telework situation. But when I was working in this like advertising company studios in London, it was people from all over the world, and everyone had slightly different ideas, and some people from certain countries were really strong with their opinions. So it's like some people were a little bit more tame, but it's really I've grown up with that, so that's normal. That's my baseline. That's normal for me. So in a lot of ways, actually coming to Amatar kind of didn't really feel that different from working in the UK, especially with the more like relaxed attitude and it's a similar kind of field like the games and advertising. So yeah, sometimes it's like those late nights when a project deadline is coming up and we've got to spend a little bit of extra time and stuff like that. But as you do that, you kind of build up camaraderie with your fellow members and stuff like that, and it all becomes like this task you all bond through. Um, which is great. And then, yeah, so it's actually very similar to what I would say it's like working in London in the UK.
Great. For me, the biggest culture shock, so I have a few, but the biggest one I always say is that I would see kids, like 5-year-olds, on trains by themselves. And even now, 10 years later, I see them like, where's your mom? That's the biggest shock to me, just how safe it is. Almaty is actually located fairly close to Kabukicho, which is the most dangerous part of Japan, but it's not. And I can walk through Kabukicho at 2 o'clock in the morning if I've had like a crazy, like been working late and then like had something afterward, and I can walk through Kabukicho and nothing happens and it's fine. It's pretty safe. I mean, I'm tall, but still, it's such that is culture shock. I'm from the U.S. I'm from Las Vegas. So I'm from a big city, but yeah, that's always been a big culture shock to me. Another big one, kind of from a working point of view, don't see this so much at Amata, but I have seen it before, is the amount of people who will sleep on the job. Some people will actually sleep at work. Amata has banned that, but you'll see, actually no, at lunchtime, like half the people are napping even at Amata. Lunchtime, they eat their lunch and they just sleep on their desk, and that blows my mind every time. But and then about the best thing about working at such a multicultural place is I love all the friendships that I've made. I'm so close to a lot of my coworkers. April is one of my best friends. I have so many great friendships that I've made working at Amata, and I would have never had this opportunity. And seeing all of their different points of views when we're working on something together and we're making a project, it's just always so wonderful, and it's just so rewarding. And I absolutely love that about working there. Yeah.
Great. And following up on a more technical side of things, we have a question here that you all are different like skill sets and different areas of work. What do you consider in your field that is necessary to have in your portfolio to stand out, maybe if you want to work in a Japanese game company?
Okay, that's a good one. Who wants to take this?
I maybe I start that. I think one other point I think is to show to present your voice of skill. For example, if you are a designer, you are aiming at making characters, it is also necessary to have some environment design or some other designs in your portfolio. It will bring you a better chance to get a job here, because the people in companies consider if you can, because you are aiming at characters, but the other job, if you enter a company, many kinds of jobs may can come to you. So the voice of your skill is an important part that thinking. And yes, that's how I consider.
Okay, how about you, Dan?
Yeah, so I actually went through the application process fairly recently. And so while I was working as an English teacher, I decided that I was going to try and apply for animation, gaming related jobs. I put together a showreel. So I set myself a project, and I always find projects go better when it's something you're like super into. And at the time I was like really into Ghost in the Shell. So I made like a little animation of the Logicoma, like in a parking space, but like mixing like real footage and this CG model I made. And especially when you're going for like slightly smaller companies where, like Mo said, you can have like a range of different roles. Demonstrating that you have skills in many different areas is really important, I think. Since coming on the like 2 projects I've been working on since I've come here, I've been doing quite a lot of different roles as a 3D artist, doing the texturing, doing modeling, doing designing stuff, doing game optimization, like trying to understand like how GPU time is affected by all these other variables and how to like optimize stuff for VR, which is stuff that I had never done before. So challenge yourself, see how like you can how well you can learn new skills and how you can take on like a range of different challenges as opposed to being incredibly focused on just one. I think for larger companies, they tend to, you're a bit more of a cog in the machine, so it's kind of, they need you to do this very specific task. So demonstrate that very specific task if that's the kind of company you want to work at. But if you want to work at somewhere like Amateur, it's better to, it's a wide range of things. You'll be doing everything.
Aprila?
Well, since I'm going to technical school, my portfolio is actually more close to the Japanese instead of what probably other people doing, because my teachers teach me everything how to put it. But yeah, just appeal your skill. Just use anything, everything, even your English skill. You can use some, like I used to put a quote in my art to actually appeal that I can speak English, or well, just better than most Japanese in English. Just put some random quote and just appeal everything you have. Even if you are apply as a designer, but you could do program, put it. It's not gonna be a minus. It's still a plus, even if it's not related to your main job. So yeah, just put everything you have.
So the reason everyone's kind of touched on showing that you have the abilities to do, you have your specialty, but you also have some base in other things. So I would say the reason that this is so important is that in Japan, there's like, you don't really have a job description per se. In my contract, it does not say that 3D artist or 3D technical animator, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't say that. It says just, I'm an artist. And that's because in Japan, job security is so good that if they don't need you in your particular role, you've got to learn a new role so that you can help the company. It's a team effort. So in the US, or I don't know if Mexico is the same, but in the US at the very least, between projects, there typically are layoffs. But in Japan, that's pretty much illegal. Like job security is so high here. It's actually my favorite thing about working in Japan. But because of that, it's a double-edged sword that once your project is over, you'll be put on another project and maybe they don't have your role, so you may need to learn something new. So appeal to the fact that you are always learning with your reel. And now talking specifically, talking more technically, from an animator's point of view, I would say that really showing your 12 principles of animation, I would say that Japanese reels tend to not show the principles as well. So really show those body mechanics, show that you have a really good understanding of things, and I think you will do very, very well. Also would recommend putting some cycles, obviously having run cycles and walk cycles, but don't just have nothing but cycles. Have some full, like an actual animation on there if you're doing an animation reel. If you are coming in as a game designer or something like that, make sure you've got examples of one sheets. Make sure you've got like, this is my, my one sheet about this game. And you've got some games that you've worked on as well, even at Game Jam stuff. Anything you can put in your portfolio, as long as it's a good level, show them this is my specialty, but I can also do these things. And I think that will really shine. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. I think this gives a lot of perspective to the students, what to focus, what to specialize, and also, have a range of different things that you can do. Because yes, it's very interesting that you can finish one project and then you got to learn something. So you're always like pushing yourself and learning new skills. Great. We have a questions a little bit more focused on the kind of games that you guys do at Amata, which is what are the typical games that you work there, and which kind of and which ones do you enjoy the most?
Okay, I'm going to start this one. So Amata started primarily as a mobile game company and has kind of evolved from there. Our bread and butter is definitely game development. We are what's called a development company. So we often, like, let's say Square Enix says they have a game and they want to have a developer do it, we will take that contract and make the game in conjunction with them. So for me, the first project I worked on was Final Fantasy Agito, and Square Enix was our client with that, and we worked very, very closely with them, and that was amazing. That was the best experience. But in recent years, we have had Tenka Hyakenzan, which is Aprila worked on that. That is very highly ranked in the Google Play and Android, or not Android, Apple iTunes, if I could speak. It's a very high ranked game, and it's still going strong today. We have also had VR, Last Labyrinth, which Mao and I worked on. It's a VR title. It's on Oculus. It's on the Rift. It's on all sorts of things. And we've gone more towards multi-platform. And then outside of just game development, this team of people here are mostly game developers, but we also have film and drama in our company. And I actually got to help a little bit on the Final Fantasy 14 Dad of Light movie that we did. I actually made a cameo in it. That was a really cool experience. But as a company, we just have a very wide range of things. We even worked on the FGO, none of us on this panel did, but the FGO VR with Mush on, I think it's on PS4. We actually did that as our company. And one of the guys who worked on that is a really big Fate fan. So he was very happy to get that opportunity. So one of the coolest things about being a developer is you get to work on all these different little IPs. Whereas if you're working at a bigger company, you only get to really work on the one. I'll give you guys the floor if anyone wants to pop in.
I'm not sure how much I can actually say
Yeah,
about
you
what I'm
probably
working
can't
on.
say anything what you're working on.
I can't say anything what I'm working on, but yeah.
But you can say you
Cool
worked on
stuff.
some VR stuff. Yeah, cool stuff.
VR stuff. It's really cool because I'm like super into VR. Like anytime I have some any free time, I'm usually in VR, especially with the COVID and not being able to go out. It's some really, really interesting projects. It's really weird to know that you're working on games that like have big names and stuff like that. Yeah.
Aprila, I don't know how much you can say.
I don't know too. So
Okay, so she can't say either. But she did work on one that was pretty good. It's a pretty big name title.
Character stuff. That's all. That's all I can.
Yeah.
And then Mao has turned off his camera, but he's worked on, since he's been in the company, he's worked on Last Labyrinth, and he was such a key player in Last Labyrinth. It's not even funny. He's absolutely amazing. I don't know what happened.
I think the Last Labyrinth is also my best experience in this company because there was first time I working on projects in Japanese companies, also the first time I'm working on VR, and also my first time to experience VR. So that's most enjoyable for me, I think.
Yeah. For me, it's definitely Agito, just because Final Fantasy is what made me want to become a game dev. So getting to, like, the first thing out the door is a Final Fantasy game, and I was just like, what? It was really cool. I actually cosplayed one of the characters that I animated. It was really cool.
Great. So keeping in some of the different positions that are in game development or animation, we have a question here, is that if there is a job position in Japan that you see too much of or too few of, there's one student who wants to focus on concept and background art. So
okay, I got a lot to say here. I got a lot to say here. So right now, yes, we are looking for a background artist. So come on. But in general, everyone and their mom wants to be a concept artist. I cannot tell you the number of concept artist portfolios I have seen in my time, because I've been pretty involved in the recruiting process since being at Amata. Concept art is very, very rare to just be a concept artist. You cannot just be a concept artist unless you work at Square Enix or Capcom or one of those and you have a big name. As a new recruit, you need to have some other skills. So talking from Amata's point of view, if you can do concept art and 2D animation, like using 2D bone animation, that's beautiful. Or if you can do concept art and UI, oh my gosh, UI, we need UI people. Everyone needs UI people. UI is one of the hardest things to find. I say this, I should preface this. I was a creative director on a couple of projects, so I do know a little bit about that side of things. Another one that we're always looking for, everyone is always looking for, is effects artists. Oh my God, we need effects artists. There's not enough of you. There's a lot of modelers. Modelers are a dime a dozen. We all need modelers, but they are a dime a dozen. I'm sorry. Animators are a little rarer, but they're there. But effects artists and UI artists are the ones that every project, no matter what's always like, oh, we need UI artists. Oh, we need effects artists. Always. You guys have anything to add?
No, I think you've covered it pretty well, but it just comes back to that, like, you really need to have quite a diverse skill set to be versatile in the Japanese workplace. Like we were, like, again, reiterating what we said before, but like, you could be doing modeling on one project, directing on another project, and then animating on another project. So being able to like be really diverse and develop enough skills that you would be able to be useful in other roles is really important. So yeah, we really need a concept artist on one of our current projects.
Yeah.
But like, but that concept artist will need to be able to fill other roles within the company once that concept art is done. And you need to be able to model, you need to be able to maybe help with some animation or like be able to fill something else. So yeah, you can definitely do that. But yeah, you need all other skills too. Yes. Right. Yeah. Keep saying. So.
Anything from the other two? No? You good?
Okay. Great. Thank you. I think that's a very key answer to our students, because they're just like starting to see what they want to focus on. I mean, they learn different sets of skills, but they need to, at the end, start specializing in something that to make it a plus of all the things that they learn. And I want to touch in something that you guys mentioned about having more animators in Japan. We have a question here that is there a difference between working in an animation studio, mostly 2D, and working in a game studio? Is it a big difference? She mentions that she heard that in Japan, 2D animators are the wage is not too big, and so she wants to know your opinion on that.
So I guess I'll field this one. So none of us have worked in a 2D studio, but I do have some friends who do. 2D studios can be crazy because the deadlines with projects are a lot shorter. And it does depend on which developer you're working at. So I've heard horror stories of people sleeping at work. Like, I don't know if there's an anime that's about game development, and one of them, like, the character's like literally has a Red Bull in one hand, is like sleeping at her desk. That does happen. I know people at Koji Pro who have slept at work. Like, I know it happens. But the industry is generally moving away from that. That is, recently Japanese laws are becoming stricter. They're restricting how much overtime you can do in a month and whatnot. So it is getting better. From Amata's perspective, typically we discourage overtime. There's actually a bell that rings right at 6:15, which is the time we're supposed to leave work. And if you're done for the day, go home. Like, no one cares, go home. If you're not, then obviously stay, finish what you're supposed to do. But they do typically try to make it so you can go home. That's not the case for every project. Obviously, there are deadlines and things, but typically they want you to go home. What do you guys? I'll let the panel kind of talk on that a little bit.
I mean, I can offer nothing other than speculation with regards to the I know, like 2D animation industry. But I would assume that the type of animation you do for games and the type of animation you do for those 2D projects are quite different.
Oh yeah.
And the nature of the projects are also different. Like especially with like mobile game development and stuff like that, that's something that can go on for quite a long time, and it's kind of like a slow but steady thing. Whereas a lot of the animation projects, like if you see anime, there's so many episodes and they have to get them out so quickly that there is this kind of like constant sense of crunch. Again, this is a speculation based on like what's out there in the media and stuff like that. But yeah, that would be my spicy hot take, I guess.
How about Aprila and Mao? Do you guys have anything to add?
I actually researched stuff about animation studio before I actually came to game studio. And there's a difference between how they pay you. First, animation studio, they pay you the basic, extremely low wage, and then they pay you from incentive. So how many art you draw, you get how many money. And for most people, it's barely make for their living. But however, in game studio, you actually get paid for like normal wage. Like yeah, so a certain level above, even if you are animation 2D animator. So yeah, there's a big difference by entering an animation studio or a game design studio. And the difference is actually quite big because animation studio animator didn't get paid as much.
Yeah, definitely true.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And or Mao, do you want to say something? I just didn't know. You okay?
I think yeah, something I want to say is that if you really like game and want to work in a game design studio, you just go there. Because in animation studio, you don't need to think about how the game project is running. That is the most different part, I think, between these two kind of work style. If you're just an animator and you just want to focus on making animations, I think the animation studio is a better choice. That's my opinion.
Yes, that's huge. As an animator, you are a game developer first, an animator second, and this is something I had to learn on the job. You are always testing the game. You can make the most beautiful animation in the whole world, but if you put too much anticipation in there, it feels bad to play it. Like when the player presses the button, they need to have that punch come out, and if you really put that animation, you exaggerate that anticipation, and then it just feels sluggish. It's no good. You can't use that animation in the game. And then oppositely, you spend forever on your, you get that real beautiful secondary animation in there. But then while that secondary animation is playing, the player can't input anything and it just stresses them out. You are making a game first and beautiful animation second. And you have to make your animation and put that in the game and see what it looks like and keep playing this loop over and over and over again. And this is something I really had to learn on the job, and a lot of animators have problems with, is they get too precious with their work and they don't just get it in the game and see what it's like. And that's the biggest difference in the workflows. I'm glad Mao said that.
Yes, that's a key difference. Thank you. I have another question here, and this is going back to something that you guys mentioned about maybe start earlier doing networking. If you want to go to Japan, of course, you maybe have to start to try to do networking. But what do you suggest, and how difficult will it be if you're like starting learning the language? Maybe you don't master it yet, but you really want to start getting to know people in Japanese game industry.
I can go on for hours about this. I'll let them go first, and then I'll clean up the end.
I think you can probably start at any point. There's like enough people who speak English, to start to get to know people, start to get your work out there, start to meet people. Yeah, I think in general, if you're networking, you should be networking globally. We live in that kind of society and that kind of time now that the contacts that you make in Mexico can be as helpful in getting you a job in Japan as the contacts that you make in Japan. They might not necessarily equate, but like, yeah, just getting yourself out there, meeting as many people as you can is always a good thing for this kind of industry. Yeah, I'll get started. Don't even need to worry about Japanese for now. Just, yeah, get out there.
Aprila and Mao, any ideas?
I'm bad at this.
Yeah. Same. Okay, then I'll take it from here. So networking is probably one of my specialties. Even I would say yes, Japanese is extremely important, but like Dan said, getting out there is more important. One of the best places to network in all of the Japanese industry is GDC. I'm not joking about this. There is the last day of GDC. There is the Japan party that they hold every year. That one is great for networking. But each night of GDC, there's typically a couple of places where Japanese game devs are hanging out. And I go to GDC every year, and I'm going to all of these parties and networking. There are so many people that come over to GDC from Japan and they're all there to network. They're all there to meet other people. And so if you show even the passing interest in Japan, they get very excited and they want to talk, and you can learn so much about them. I remember I was eating lunch at Panda Express around the corner from GDC, and I ended up sitting next to two Japanese developers, and we started talking, and they were from Software. And now I have contacts at From Software. So it's just, GDC is one of the best places you can go, and make sure when you're going to GDC, you're not just going to the seminars, you're going afterward and finding these parties, and not just parties, but like proper events and things like that. And you're getting and meeting people, and between seminars as well, meeting people. And when you're sit down and talk to the people around you, and that's the best networking you can do. Once you're actually in Japan, game jams is a really big one. Tokyo Game Show is not that great for networking. CEDIC is actually pretty good. It's the Japanese equivalent of GDC. I recommend CEDIC if you're in Japan. It's better. There's after parties after CEDIC, and those are great to go to.
Great, thank you. And actually, taking on that, that's where Alexis and I met at the Japanese dinner. And we were just talking to everyone. And I have another friend that actually ended up working in Japan because we also went to that meeting together. Mm-hmm. And it's a great place to do networking. So now I wanted to talk on a question that we have here, that it has to do with Japanese job culture. What do you guys found most different, and that you wanted from your own culture? What was different from the Japanese job culture? Somebody mentioning that there's sometimes they see in movies that there's meetings at the beginning of the day. If it's real, and how is that different from your own experience?
You guys go first.
There are meetings in the morning. That's definitely a thing.
That's very true.
Yeah, for again, me personally, like actually, funnily enough, my experience at Amateur at least has been very similar to what would be expected in my home country. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of overtime crunch and stuff like that, but that's towards deadlines. But that was exactly the same in the UK. Here, there's no scorn if you leave your desk and go home on time to your family. In fact, if anything, that's encouraged. And yeah,
but that's a very Amata thing. That's very Amata.
Yeah,
I will point that out.
Yeah, I mean, like when I was working in schools, there was definitely a bit more about that teacher's going home early at like 10 o'clock at night. Oh, they're slacking off. I was like, no, they they worked all day. Like, what are you talking about? So that it does exist. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't, but my personal experience has been to avoid that stuff like the plague. So I've been pretty lucky so far.
Aprila?
I never work outside of Japan, so even if you ask me the difference, I don't know. But yeah, there's a meeting in the morning, and I kind of find there's a lot of meeting more than I expected before I actually work. But again, I never work outside of Japan, so I don't know the difference. Maybe there are the same amount of meeting in my country too, but I just don't know. So yeah, I cannot answer much about this question. I only have experience work here.
Mao probably is really good at this one.
Yeah, I agree. That's it. So there's a lot of meeting here, and I think the important thing is you have to make sure for something before you can really take part in. Make sure from your leader and make sure from the other people who are working on the same project of you before you can really get in the job. I think it's very important because it reduces the possibility you will make mistake, I think. But I just have 1 year working for in my home country, so I think is of course this is totally different because we work 6 days each week in a Chinese company. But yes, that's I can see. So
Okay, and then I've never technically worked in the United States, but I have a lot of friends who do, and I know enough. I'd say the biggest difference is definitely the whole job description thing. How I joined this company as an animator and technical artist, but I do translation and interpretation, and I became a creative director for a couple of projects, and there's it's not very rigid of what you're asked to do. That's probably the biggest difference in my mind. Another one is the way they handle scheduling. It's very waterfall heavy, meaning there's a lot of Gantt charts, and we're following like this very, very specific schedule, versus where in the West it's typically an agile style, or even Kanban style is more popular now. That there's a little bit stuck in the waterfall system in Japan. And that's not just Amata, that's just overall, it's a lot of companies. And then another big one is the top down versus bottom up approach, especially for game developers. In the West, there's very much a bottom up approach, meaning the team as a whole kind of decides things and it goes up. Whereas in Japan, it's typically there's the director and they say this and you do this, and then the people on the bottom are like, I don't necessarily agree with that, and most of the time they'll listen a little bit, but in the end it's all what the director at the top has to say. Because of this system, you can get really weird games that come out of Japan, and that's the cool, quirky things about the games here. And that's why you have those unique games, but it is a very different approach than it would be in, say, the United States, where it's more bottom up. I would say those are some of the biggest differences.
Great. We have another question that's more technical, I think. We have one of our students who is a big fan of 3D animation. He wants to know what's more predominantly in Japan of 3D animation, is keyframe animation or motion capture animation?
Oh, this one's fun. Anyone want to go on this, or do I need to just go as the animator?
Well, I mean, as a user, I can tell that there and based on what I've seen in game media and stuff like that, that there is a push towards motion capture, but motion capture is just as much work. Having taught motion capture at university, there's a lot of cleanup. There's a lot of like hand animation keyframes that need to go on top of motion capture anyway, unless you're at a place which is doing something where you have like all your actors in like a giant motion capture studio and you're using like Unreal Engine the latest Unreal Engine to like project backgrounds and all kinds of other stuff, and you've got like a handheld camera like they did with Resident Evil 5. A lot of keyframe animation is going to be important, I think. Even with motion capture. I think motion capture lets you get lots of volume of different animations really quickly. It gives you a nice base, but yeah, I think it really depends on the project, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly my takeaway as well. I would say if you are doing a mobile game, which a lot of the game industry in Japan is mobile game based, that is a huge market share is mobile. You're going to typically be doing hand keyed animation, and then the larger of a system you're going to start getting more of that mocap base. But in order to make that mocap usable, you do need to hand key on top of that. You can't just take raw mocap data unless you're doing motion matching. Maybe then you can do it, but and really I don't think very many places are using motion matching, and that's really only for local motion systems anyway. So I would say that hand key mixed with mocap is probably what the norm is right now for like the AAA titles. And then for the smaller indie stuff, they're probably still leaning more towards hand key because, you know, you don't have those giant mocap spaces in most places. So yeah, hand keyed is still extremely, extremely, extremely important.
Okay, great.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, like, again, like difference between like the VFX animation and the kind of stuff that I did and this game stuff is that, like Alexis was saying earlier, you have to think about how the player's input is going to work and stuff like that. So it's that kind of stuff can be really difficult to capture in a mocap studio because these things need to blend together. A person needs to go from a run to a sprint in the way based on how the player is moving rather than you capturing that specific movement, which mocap is really good for, but it does have some drawbacks. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no, thank you. I think that's really helpful. We have one question because there's a lot of 2D artists here, and I think this is more focused for 2D artists. That what would you suggest the students should learn or focus, or what kind of projects should they start working on as practice, maybe, to get ahead of the curve in regards to 2D work, basically. I think this is more for the 2D artists around here.
Aprila and Mao, go for it.
All right, let me go first. Well, as a 2D artist, I think basic is important. So yeah, design and croquis. What's croquis in English again?
That would be gesture drawings.
Yeah, it's extremely important. And other than that, it's probably just bigger repertoire. So don't just draw characters. Make sure you are able to draw characters in different toshin. What's toshin again in English?
Head sizes, number of head lengths.
So yeah, like real size or mini character, and then also backgrounds and stuff. And even UI is important and effect. So even if you are saying, I want to be a 2D artist, you should be able to draw everything, basically. As long as you are able to draw everything, I think it's a really good start. So yeah.
Also, still lives are also important. I see those in portfolios too.
Yeah, not to be drawings and stuff.
Mao?
It's a little hard for me because I used to be an illustrator, but I never did any 2D illustrate job in Amata. But I think there's one important part that you have to know. First, you have to know what is good for game design. Making some design for game design is not as same as, for example, making a character you like or making something that is enjoyable for yourself. The design is for other people, for the user. You have to have the point of view. What is a good design for a game, but not a good design for yourself? So the important things to how you can start up is to have it may be kind of difficult to have a good teacher or have a good trainer in front of me, and who can tell you how you should, not how you should do, but how you should think. I think that is very important. That's for me.
I would also add to make sure that you know how to organize your data and how you can make that data be used in a game. So if you can get practice, like if you like, for example, like making a mini character or something like that, if you can get practice making a mini character and exporting it and making it so it's a usable asset. Because again, just like with the animation conversation, your work does not end, especially if you're doing UI or like characters, like 2D characters that are going to be used as an asset. Your work doesn't end until like its asset is in the game. So make sure you know how to put that asset in the game. So if you're doing UI, know how to, break down your UI into, I'm been up really early this morning into the proper textures and things like that. Make sure you're able to also make sure that the data that you make is something that another person could open and understand, not just layer one, layer one copy, layer blah, blah, blah. Like make sure that it's clean data that you can give to another person, because when you work in a company, when you're working on a project, you're not the only one using that data. Make sure it's usable by others.
One thing I would also add to that, again, it's slightly tangential. Like when I did video stuff, I used to make videos for other people. I think getting into the mindset of making something for someone else is quite important. Obviously, having those personal projects that you work on, which you're passionate about, and you can like develop your skills in, is really good. But ultimately, if you want to do this as a profession, or if you want to do this as a job, you have to kind of come to terms with you're making this for someone else, and what that person may want may not align with what you necessarily want to make or what you think is best at times, but ultimately it's for them. So I learned that when I was making videos for other people, and there's times when I was editing like a wedding or something like that, and they would say, oh, we really like this shot, but I know the composition's like really bad and it's too dark and stuff, but if they like that shot, then it's got to make the cut. Yeah,
Great.
so,
Thank you. Actually, I think we have a question about VR, because Dan was mentioning something here. Some of our students are working on a small project, and they want to ask, what do you think is the focus on making a VR experience? You have any tips for someone starting to work on that?
okay. Can I take this one?
Yeah, no, go.
Yes. Yeah. So speaking as like a VR user, so I've got like about 2,000 hours in VR now. And I've played loads of different games, but you got to really think about what makes VR special. And there are a few key things. One is the interactivity and the immersion. So being immersed in this world and being able to like pick up things and look around and manipulate objects like you can in real life is quite important. Making use of like fantasy settings, or putting someone in a situation they could never be in real life. Like I spend a lot of time in flight simulators, flying, because that's an experience that I at this point wouldn't be able to get, at least in the military realm. Next is social aspects. So for me, especially during the COVID and being in a different time zone to a lot of my friends and family, being able to meet them in VR spaces is really big. So if you're not going for like necessarily interactive immersion, then maybe like the social aspects can be quite important. That's why things like VR chat and those things are super popular. Even in military shooters like Onward and stuff like that, a big aspect of it is these people that you meet, these people you can interact with, because having that physical presence it's on a whole different level from just even like having these kind of Zoom calls and stuff like that. The last thing I think is really important is making use of VR. So I think VR is, if you try and make VR games the same way you make like a traditional game, you will likely run into a lot of issues. You need to really think about what makes VR special. The depth perception, the being immersed in this, completely immersed in this world, the social interactions. Think about what it is that makes why your game needs to have VR, as opposed to making a game and then putting VR on it. You've got to do it the other way around and think like, okay, what does VR add to this? And this is why we need to use VR to make this game. This game would not be possible without VR. And if you can make that kind of experience, I think that you'll be onto the road to making success. In terms of technical things, again, like there's a lot of restrictions with VR. You have less freedom with like how many polygons you can use, like the complexity of the animation, how many bones you can use. As a result of that, there are some limitations, but again, you trying to work around those limitations, like making use of what you can, testing models in VR to see like how much you can get away with reducing the polygon counts and stuff like that is really crucial in creating a immersive experience, I think. Yeah, kind of rambling a bit, but yeah. I like
No, that was beautiful. That was great. I don't have anything to add. Mao, do you have anything to add? Because Mao is also pretty versed.
Yes, I think there are a lot of technical tips for making a good VR game, but generally speaking, I think the most important thing is that test everything in VR, not just in your Maya or your 3D Max, your Unity editor. The first thing I realized, the first time I made a model for VR game, I realized in VR, it just looks smaller than in editor or your 3D soft. So the experience is totally different. The feeling of the objects is totally different in VR. So you have to test everything you made in VR to make sure if they are good enough for VR game, not just for normal 3D games. And as a visual effector, the most I think is quite painful because there is not a good solution for some, billboard, because in a normal 3D game, we always, maybe some of you already have some experience on this part, and we need some smoke effect, use billboard, just to put a texture on a plane to show that to users. But in VR, if the billboard, the plane is too close to the user will realize, oh, it's a plane. It's not smoke, it's just a plane. It won't happen in normal 3D game, but it happens in VR quite often. So the important thing I think is, of course, there's many technical tips, and I can take one day to say that, speaking for that. But the key part is test everything in VR, just not just in your 3D soft. Yes.
From an animator's perspective, animating in VR, you don't know where they're looking. You just don't know where they're looking. Like animating in a game, you have a little bit more control. Some games can control the camera, but it's not as crazy as like in VR, because like it's just, they're right there in front of you. So you have to pay so much more attention to all the little details in the animations and things, and make sure that you're guiding their eye, because they could be looking behind you when an event is happening and you're like, wait, no, because like you can't do cutscenes in VR. You can, but the way we've done them is we let them, still have their freedom, because you don't want to take freedom away in VR. But if you're trying to show an event scene, you have to have them looking at it. So leading the user's eye is really important. So not only just testing yourselves as developers, but having outside people test and seeing if they're looking and noticing the things that need to be noticed is also important, I think.
Yeah,
Great. Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the environmental design is like really crucial.
Yes.
If you look at examples of obviously it's the example of Half-Life Alyx. They have loads of those kind of event scenes, and yeah, you could be busy like not tapping on cups and stuff like that when there's like this giant monster in the background like moving and stuff like that, and the player would ignore it. But using like all your tools available, like sound design, lighting, everything, to kind of draw the player's attention to where it should be, and guiding them, level design that funnels them through these places where you have these like set pieces, is so much more like crucial in VR, because people, especially when they first get into it, just in the simple mundane interactions would be enough to entertain people, and it can distract them from what you want to be showing them. So you really have to kind of like take that into account.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. So I think maybe we have time for one more question, and it's kind of two things that our students want to know. One is that if you have your portfolios, your personal portfolios available, so they can look at your journey as an artist. And the second question, and this one will be to close out, will be being working at a Japanese game company. Of course, you like video games, and you're living in Japan, the mecca of video games. What is the coolest thing about living in Japan, knowing that you love games and everything? This is where we let our geeks explode. You can share with us.
All right, let's go from Mao, Aprila, Dan, then I'll end it.
Okay.
Living in Japan is cool.
Oh, wait. First off, do you have a portfolio online for people to see? I don't, so.
I'm going to share it now. I'm not going to share it now.
We can. You can give us the address later, and we can share it later with the students.
Yes. I have a portfolio when I started in technical. I made in technical school, and also one I made recently for some effect or something. Yes.
But yeah, what's the coolest thing about Japan?
Yeah, cool things about Japan is there's too many things that so wild. Maybe not a good word, but yes, you never experience. It's so wild, but you just feel it's cool. It's something quite new to you. We also talk maybe we have some expectation of how Japanese culture looks like, but when you really came here, you find it's not exactly as you think. That I think is the most cool part I found here.
Upper lip.
I send my portfolio paperback, so I don't have any online portfolio that's active for now. I just checked it out. The link is off now. So yeah, there's nothing I can share about that. As for the coolest thing in Japan as a geek is first thing first, you could buy your games easily on their release date. And you could easily buy any goods you want. You could actually participate in any event of the game that you want. It's just so cool that, yeah, everything is so close, and I'm just happy I'm in Japan now. I think that's...
Yeah. Right, Dan?
As for personal portfolio, I don't have any of my professional work on it, but I have I know some videos. In fact, there's actually a travel video of me and my brother in Japan. Vimeo.com/Daniel Barker Media. That's got my show reel and stuff in it, I guess. On university work. As for life in Japan, what's the coolest thing? The food is amazing, hands down the best. It's so good. Even food from other cuisines and stuff like that, other countries' cuisine is really, really good. In Japan, they hold food to such a high standard. You can go to a McDonald's and have your mind blown. It actually looks like what it does in the photos and stuff like that. They have that kind of crazy high standard for food. Also, it's such a naturally beautiful country. I've traveled all the way across Japan. I've seen almost all of it. And there's just all these awe-inspiring scenes and stuff like that, and natural beauty. So if you come here and you go traveling, you will not be disappointed. Yeah, it's been a blast, and it's going to continue being a blast. So yeah. As for nerdy stuff, oh man, first time I saw the life-size Gundam, my mind was like, that was so cool. And like now they got the new one coming out soon, the one that can like actually walk around and stuff like that. Oh man, just the first time you see a life-size Gundam or a life-size Godzilla, your mind will be blown. Like it doesn't matter what else you've seen.
So for me, my website is currently being completely redone. I can technically show you my student reel from 12 years ago, but it's so embarrassing that I'm like, but you can totally search it on YouTube, Alexis Broadhead Full Sail, and it'll show up. It's really bad though. It's really bad. None of my professional work I've been able to put on there because of that's one thing that happens if you work at a developer. You're unable to put your professional work on your reel, so you have to do personal projects. And the cool thing about Japan is my hobby is cosplay, and because my hobby is cosplay, I don't have time. I make costumes in my free time, and I don't have time for personal projects. So if I were to try to get another job, I would be able to show like a company the stuff I've worked on, but I can't put it online. So that kind of sucks. But yeah, so the coolest thing about Japan is the fact that any given weekend, I can go somewhere and I can cosplay, and there's a bunch of people cosplaying, and they have photo studios dedicated to cosplay. Like they have a 7-story studio, and there's just a million different sets on it, and you only pay like $50 to use it that day with a bunch of other people, and it's the best. And the cosplay community here is so much better. I love it here so much. And then obviously, yeah, full-size Gundams are amazing. I really like trading card games, and you can spit and hit about 5 different card shops in this country. So I absolutely love that. I'm really into card games now. And just in general, how being a geek isn't like, yes, there's a little bit of a stigma, but not really. Everywhere you go, there's some sort of anime stuff. Like right now, Demon Slayer is literally everywhere.
Oh yeah,
it's so mainstream.
Obsessed with that.
Yeah, you can't go anywhere without Demon Slayer stuff being everywhere. And
the coffee.
Yeah, it's on the coffee. It is literally Demon Slayer coffee. I don't have it right now, but yeah. And there's a Nintendo shop in Shibuya. You can get the coolest freaking goods possible. Like I have so much cool stuff. Yeah, I just love living here. I don't use normal notebooks anymore. All of my notebooks have some form of Pokemon on them. I just love all the cute stuff that they have here.
Awesome. This has been great. Very informative. And Alexis, don't worry. We'll find your videos, and once we get back to school, we'll do a film festival, and we'll show you the pictures of it. So don't worry about it.
No.
Oh yeah.
Go look up if you can Final Fantasy Dad of Light, though. That series is pretty cool. I don't know if the movie's out in the West, but I'm in it.
Oh, that would be great. Yes, we'll look for it. I think the guys are already writing it down. Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for being available, guys. Yes?
Can I say one more thing?
Sure. We
are hiring. We are so hiring, you guys. We are so hiring. If you have Japanese language proficiency N2 or equivalent, we are totally hiring. We love new graduates. It's so much easier to join a company as a new graduate than it is to do the journeyman thing that Dan and I did. I really think if you have your Japanese abilities, you will have a good chance. So amata.co.jp, there's a careers page. The site is available in English, Japanese, and Korean. So definitely check it out. We are totally always hiring. We hire twice a year. October is one start date and April is the other. So you have 2 options if you are joining as a new graduate. So definitely check that out. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. It's alexis@amata.co.jp, just ALEXIS at AMATA.co.jp. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
I will write it down and then I put it on
Yeah.
our social media so the students can check. One final question about that. Do you have to have a certain like Japanese proficiency level that it's required? What?
So
N1,
we
N2,
want,
N3?
yeah, we want N2 typically. You don't actually have to physically have N2 in your hand. I didn't have N2 in my hand, but you need to be able to speak about that level, meaning that you need to be able to have an everyday conversation and talk about more specified things. And if you want to say something and you don't know the word, you should be able to talk around it. And if someone's talking, you should be able to understand the majority of what they're saying.
Yeah, like I think I've got the weakest Japanese out of everyone here, and like it was my first time working in a company where I needed to use Japanese. When I was working as an English teacher, I used English almost all the time. So using Japanese in a professional sense was quite challenging at first, but that skill of being able to work around what you want to say and say it with what you know how to say is crucial. And I think once you kind of get to that point, then I think you're good, because everything else will then start to come as you practice more and you use it more and you speak more. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. I think this last part was very important. We have a couple of students that have been studying Japanese and are doing the conversational apps and everything, and they do have a very good level. So I think it will be very interesting. They still have 1 year to improve everything and then graduate.
Yeah,
But-
well, apply early. The Japanese process of application starts like a year or more in advance. So if you only have a year left, you are already ready. You can start applying.
Oh, great.
Yes.
That's a good one. So we have a couple, Cass, remember? She's one of the soon to be graduates.
Oh, well then, yeah.
Perfect. Guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's been very informative. It's been really fun to hear all your stories and hear everything you have to say. April, I'm so sorry that I wrote your name wrong. And but thank you, guys. Mao, thank you, Dan, and Alexis. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
And
you for
it's a
having
pleasure.
us.
Yeah, it's
This
been a
was
pleasure.
fun.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
so my main goal and ultimate satisfaction will be that maybe 1 year from now, I can see some of my students working there at the Mata.
That'd
would
be amazing.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing your students.
Yep, I can't wait.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. We're here about 9:30 at night, so we're probably gonna head to bed.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
11:30 in the morning for us.
Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it and looking forward to well, we're gonna be sharing all the social networks and everything. Thank you and have a great day.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.